Okay, hello everyone. I am checking all of my levels to make sure everything looks good. Let me know if anyone is in the chat, if you can hear me okay, if you need more volume on my end, um, or anything like that. It's saying I'm kind of quiet, so I'm like, let me know if you can hear me okay. Um, Thank you for y'all's patience today. I know this was scheduled for 20 minutes ago. My streaming software decided to be silly and a little unreliable with me, but we are here now. Um, I am going to see if I can go drop this link in the link of the other one real quick. Select stream. This one is upcoming. Yes. Okay. I can't do that right now, but that's all right. I wonder if I can open that in a new tab and do that. Let's see. Let's check it out, shall we? Experimenting live on stream with YouTube streaming software. I don't know how good of an idea that is, but we'll see. Okay, we have that. We have live and upcoming. Let's get shareable link. And then let's click in here. Can I go into it? Yes. Okay. Amazing. Okay. I did it. I was able to share the link to this live in the link to the other live. Also, this is fully mirrored and I'm not used to my software being mirrored, so I keep like, whoa. Um, but we have that, and I'm going to pin that message. Okay. Amazing, brilliant, and beautiful. We did it. We did it, y'all. We did it, Joe. Okay. Now that we are here, now that we are live, hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope you are doing well on this beautiful Monday morning, or Monday evening. It is finally getting hot here in Texas. I say finally as though it's not literally March and it's already sweltering outside. So I am inside in the air conditioning, ready to be with y'all, be reading some Reddit stories and and just get into it. So today we are once again focusing on source. We're kind of um theming each live stream after the current topic for the pillar that I'm working on within my work at work. So we're still in the source spirituality spirit era of live streams. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the fact that this is mirrored because I'm not used to that with live streams, which sounds silly, but it's kind of a mind game right now looking at myself. But the game plan is we're going to dive a little bit into some more philosophy, history, thought process behind what source is as a pillar of coherence, and then dive into our collective tarot reading, and then also read some Reddit stories that are Am I the asshole about different spiritual things, different relationships to spirituality. So we'll start with this little bit of background around source, what that means. And so right now, the piece of source that I want to really dive into is this idea of symbolism. And I've been doing a lot of research into different ceremonial magic practices recently. And it's been interesting to see the different way that different spiritualities conceive of the idea of magic and talk about this phenomenon. But the one thing that I have found across so many different traditions, ancestries, things like that, is that the magical practice is almost always related to crossing the divide between the material and the immaterial, between the imaginal and the real, between um, matter and energy, right? Even though aren't those the same thing? And that's kind of the underlying thought process behind magic, behind what magic could actually be. And there's a bunch of different ways to describe this phenomenon of magic, of crossing the divide between the material and the material. But this is where rituals come from, the idea of gods, the idea of prayer, communication. The reason storytelling is so popular because these are symbolic ways to cross the divide. And in spirituality, in magic, what is symbolism except a physical manifestation of something that is non-real, non-material? So you could think about this in terms of sigil practices or ritual ceremonial magic practices, or even, like I just said, storytelling and symbolism and metaphors. But also, you can think about this with dreams and dreaming, right? You're in this non material, non real realm when you dream. And then when you wake up, you've crossed back into some sort of material reality. And the only way that we can really make sense of our dreams is then through symbolism, storytelling. What's the hidden meaning behind all of this here? What is the hidden message that we can convey, that we can draw something from? What's the lesson here? And the reason why I find this so important, but also potent in my worldview, in my philosophies, in my practices and rituals around certain things is because human beings have always and always will sit at the crux of this divide, of this liminal space. Because, yes, we are very evidently material beings living in this material realm, living in this world that is deeply matter based, right? Like all of these things are based in energy, matter, physical things. And also, I experience life through consciousness, through experience. There are feelings and energies that arise within me that I can't really describe through discursive language. And so we turn to these ideas of gods, we turn to these ideas of something bigger than ourselves, of spirit, of source, of, you know, chi, energy, chakras, Reiki, God, religion, spirituality, name any word, language that we use to describe the phenomenon of something external, immaterial to us, and yet human beings constantly engage with this because we're at the crux here. So I have just found that really powerful and empowering in my own work to remember that I really am the bridge between this material realm, living in a body, but also being inspired, which the etymology of the word inspired is real literally to be inspirited. And when you think of inspire, respire, expire, it is all these relationships to spirit, to energy, to something non material that we are describing that is also to do with the breath a lot in this etymology, but all of that to say, we are constantly crossing this divide and crossing back, represented through symbolism and stories and metaphors throughout history, tales, lineages, all of that good stuff. So I find that deeply powerful and beautiful, but we're going to go ahead and dive into our tarot reading. And then after we get into the tarot, we're going to dive into some Reddit stories. So we'll do a quick collective message for everyone that is here right now. If you have found this video and you are watching, thank you, first of all, for being here. Or if you are finding this video in the future, this is a timeless reading for anyone that finds it here, finds it in the future, stumbles across it. If it is here, perhaps there is something here for you. Perhaps there is something to be reminded of, to remember, to be inspired by. And as I shuffle, I'm going to set the intention for a message in our own relationship with Source, for all of the collective energies that come across this now, in the future, at any moment in time. Asking my guides, your guides, the universe to guide this message with wholeness and coherence. And anything that needs to come through, trusting that it will. And we're not going to use any specific spread today, just whatever needs to come out. And trusting that whatever you need to hear here, you will hear. Okay, first starting with overall energy, we have the Six of Swords. So, Six of Swords is largely associated with moving away from something. But I think there's also a deep caretaking energy here that is often overlooked in this card because we see this page, this young boy on top of the boat rowing what these two figures that are largely considered to be a mother and her child. And these swords that are positioned down into the boat. And it's almost putting a blockage up from moving away from something. And so, really, what's coming through, because swords are the suit of the mental, of thought, of the mind. And it's also a very masculine energy. This idea that we can't move forward, that we can't truly protect and provide for ourselves and create the future life that we want to, if our mind is stopping us, if our mind is the thing that is blocking a revolution, an evolution, a self evolution. And even this being a boat, the water is such a liminal space, and the boat is so symbolic of very much the human being, right? Balancing on these waves in the tumult of everything. And I think needing to get out of our own way a little bit, right? Like trusting that the waves will take us where it needs to, that whatever protector energy is here, yes, we are the protectors for ourselves. And, but also, there are other energies here helping us too. I'm almost hearing this like we have like you currently as the page, inner child as this child, and then the mother figure here as the crone, like in this maiden mother crone archetype thing, which I don't always love those three archetypes, but for the sake of this analogy, something very much about getting out of our own way and allowing a natural evolution to come through, and the thoughts being what is preventing that, mental energy being what is blocking it, and that being also from ourselves, but then also needing ourselves to be the ones to kind of de-sword those swords that are in front of us. Like I'm hearing pull the sword from the stone. But that comes from belief, a belief in yourself that you can be the one to do it. Yeah. Okay. We have the Two of Swords, absolutely a blockage in the path that is a mental game. But the really beautiful idea about the Two of Swords is that, yes, it can be about a blockage in the path, but it is also about the twofold path. And oftentimes we look at forks in the road as a blockage because there's no such thing as a perfect choice. There's no such thing as a perfect path. You take the path on the left, you're forfeiting the path on the right. If you take the path on the right, you're forfeiting the path on the left. And we want to be able to have it all, right? We want um all of the experiences, all of the lessons, all of the messages across the board, but there's always an opportunity cost. But the right choice is the one that you make, is making it the right choice. I'm also thinking about college admissions, so that may be relevant for someone. This idea of, oh, I hope that I choose the right university. I hope that I choose the right path. I hope that I make the right choice. But ultimately, there is no right or wrong choice with where you choose to go, the place that you choose to be, because it will always be what you make of this experience. And same thing, a fork in a road is not a blockage, even though it feels like, well, why can't I just have all of it, and I'm being blocked because I don't wanna sacrifice this one thing for this thing, but that's not a blockage. That's a choice we're making ourselves that's self-limiting, that's telling us one path is going to block us from the life of our dreams, that if we sacrifice this one thing, we do not have enough, we won't have everything. And that's not to say that you can't eventually like, that these 2 paths may not converge. Of course, the Robert Frost poem is coming up for me as well. It may be worth it to read that. There may be some symbolism or messages in there for you too. But ultimately, that it doesn't really matter what path you choose. Just move forward. The other card that popped out was our Six of Pentacles, which is all about giving and receiving energy, very heart chakra energy. And also financially, it's interesting because people talk about the heart chakra in all sorts of different ways. But I think thinking of it in terms of giving and receiving is really powerful because one, it is the green color, right? And green is often associated with money. And money is again, crossing the divide between the material and the immaterial. Money is a material representation of immaterial energies. And we need to be open to giving and receiving, similarly to riding the waves that our boat is on, right? We need to be able to ride the tides that allow us to move forward without being the thing that stops us. And this both looks like protecting ourselves from giving too much, from emptying our cups, but also from not blocking being able to receive the support that we need. I think oftentimes there's so much shame around being receptive, around needing or asking for help. And even these figures in the traditional Rider Waite Smith deck look very much like beggars. They're in, tattered clothes, and there's so much shame around not being able to do it yourself, not being a self-made person, not pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and getting it done. But even that very saying, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, actually, in its original iteration, was supposed to make fun of this idea that you can do it all yourself. Because if you think about the idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, the physics of that are impossible. You can't actually pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, right? You do need support and help. And I think we live in a society that very much wants us to feel isolated and alone in these things. It's part of hyper individualism. And not to say that you are not more than capable, but perhaps part of these mental blocks is thinking that you have to do it alone, that you have to pick a path that is perfect for you with the map that you made with your own compass, and that you don't get to build your like traveling pack with any sort of help or support. And I think that's a block right now. This need to I'm even hearing like this need to be different. It's also okay if there are similarities between your path and others' paths. That doesn't make it not um unique. It doesn't make it not individual, because no matter how similar it may look to someone else's path, it will always be your iteration. I want to hear a little bit more information on this actual mental block, if it is to do with this giving and receiving energy, this need for community, for support, and if that support is internal or external or both. It's probably both. It's usually both. Um, okay. So we have the Five of Wands in reverse that just popped out, and the Fool in reverse. Interesting. And I read reversals a little bit differently than other readers. I tend to look at it more as moon, internal, subconscious energy. And so it very much is a battle within the self. Like almost this idea of what are my values? I thought that I valued this thing, but everything that I want is telling me to make this other choice. And do I have to sacrifice who I am for what I want? No. No, you don't. What you want will actually guide you to being who you are, and not guide you to being who you are. It will help peel back the layers of remembering who you always have been. And that's very much, I'm hearing like being is becoming. But in this being is becoming, it's not just about becoming, it is remembrance. I'm also seeing the symbol of the Ouroboros in my mind, or Ouroboros, I think I say it wrong every time, where the moment of becoming is also the beginning of the cycle once again. It's like the number 0, and the other card that popped out was the Fool, right? So it is very much at this transition moment in wherever you are right now, that you have this choice to begin a new cycle, to change, to do something new, to try something new that is a new version, a new iteration of who you are, of who you always have been in this creative way. But keep in mind, you're not leaving behind your values. The Fool, keep in mind that this is reversed, but the Fool has this little bindle here that he carries with him, very first card of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And this bindle usually has an acorn on top, which you can see there a little bit. And the acorn represents the pineal gland, which is very much our connection to our subconscious. Depending on your belief system, it could be connection to past lives, connection to mental health, connection to ancestry, to generational traumas, but also successes and experiences. The Fool always carries something with him into this new journey. But the gift of the Fool is that he is able to take those lessons and look at this opportunity as a brand new day. Something new is dawning, something new is blooming, and there may be this internal struggle over that of, what do I need to let go of in order to trust this next phase, in order to truly embody the next phase? And I think that's our next question. What is it that we need to let go of? Oof. Four of Wands in reverse popped out, which very much is this sense of home. But perhaps this idea that home is something separate from the self, that home is something outside of us, that it's something we must look at, which is interesting. There is a paradox here very much in the reading, that is this asking for community and needing to be able to accept and receive support, while at the same time trusting your internal voice and your own definition of home. So I wonder if part of the strife here, if part of the conflict is just this, I know I need support, but I'm also doing this, but it's also my journey. I want to pull one on this paradox here too, because that's interesting, and I think that that is difficult. I think that's something we probably all face right now, especially in wanting community that feels really supportive and knowing that we need community, and also what happens when community isn't perfectly supportive, and can that take me away from certain expressions of self that I want to be able to pull into? And we have the 7 of Pentacles in reverse, and it's the internal work. It's the internal work of trusting the self and trusting the seeds that you have planted, that you can look back and celebrate on the hard work and the hard growth that you have fought for. And also, when you harvest these seeds, because I'm also thinking we're in this time of the spring equinox and things beginning to bloom. It's this time of blooming when jealousy can really become a thing, but also comparison, and comparing the things that are working or not working for you to what is working or not working for others. And I'm coming back to the 4 of Wands in reverse now, just this idea that you are your own home. You are your own sanctuary, your own safe haven, your own support system, first and foremost. And even though it feels paradoxical, here it is. That's why this paradox came up earlier. Even though it feels paradoxical, beginning with the self and centering yourself and centering your needs and your self-knowledge and self-efficacy and your will, it feels very self-centered. But when you give yourself everything you need, that means when you enter out into the world, you are not looking for anyone else or anything else to be filling up your cup, because you're already full. And if you notice, a lot of the time when you hear people having conversations, and I know I'm guilty of it, I'm sure that y'all have experienced this as well, it'll feel like two people just monologuing back and forth at each other, not really listening. And you know, you hear the listen to listen to hear, not to respond. And I think so often because we're not centering ourselves first and foremost, then when we're in situations with other people, we're trying to say, "Oh yeah, well that happened to me once," or "Oh yeah, I had this thing too," and we put ourselves in it. And not to say that that's always a self-centered thing to do in that moment. Sometimes it can be extremely helpful to have um a story that you have to be able to share with someone to offer comfort or guidance or support or anything like that. But long story long, in centering yourself first, you are then more able to center other people in every area of your life. And that is why being your own home first is so important. Because when your house is in order, then you can invite in guests. Then you can fill your guest room. Then you can open up your home and be a sanctuary, not just for yourself, but for others. But if you don't have a sanctuary for yourself first, even if you want to invite other people in, it's from a place of ego, of wanting to serve from a place of ego, not from a place of empowerment and actualizing the will. I want to look at the bottom of the deck. Okay, yeah, and I was about to say, I think this is our last card of this message, and it is the Two of Wands in reverse. And I think absolutely this is our last card today. It just perfectly reflects our beginning message of two paths diverge in the wood. Two of Wands. Here, let me hold it upright so you can see it a little bit better, even though keep in mind it's reversed. The world is in your hands. There are two sparks of creativity before you, but you get to decide. It is your willpower. It is your self sovereignty that decides what, not only what path you choose, but what that path ultimately is and what it looks like. And making that decision from a place of self assurance and self love and self trust, as opposed to a place of fear, will mean that that path flourishes, blooms boundlessly, not holds you back to anything that you feel like you are meant for here. Okay. Thank you to you if you stopped in, if you are here for sharing your energy with us during this reading. I'm going to close out this reading and then we'll move on to reading some Reddit stories. But if you've been here for the reading, go ahead and take a deep breath with me. And on the exhale, just thank your guides, your higher power, the universe, source, whatever language you want to use for being here. And acknowledging just the magic of being here in this moment together. And thank you for lending me your energy and allowing me to channel for you in this message. Okay. Reddit stories. Okay. I think I finally figured out how to share my screen. Very exciting for me, so that we can read these together while we're reading. We just have the text here. Okay, perfect. I hope that y'all can see this okay. Let me know in the chat how the layout is and if there's any technical things that y'all would like shifted or adjusted. Just let me know. But we're going to be reading spiritual Reddit stories because, like we said, today our theme is source, spirituality, and I think that this is actually a really interesting topic coming from someone who is deeply spiritual, who believes in a lot of stuff like this, because I think 9 times out of 10, when there's strife around spirituality and spiritual practices, it's not even really about the spirituality. It's about these people projecting onto each other and onto what spirituality is in the first place, right? So Let's dig in. This is our first story. It's from r slash am I the asshole? And this was posted 2 years ago, now deleted. AITA for telling my friend's girlfriend to stop this poop. Thank you, YouTube. When she pulled out tarot cards. And if you've been here, I just pulled out my tarot cards. So let's dig in. My 24 male best friend Lewis, 24 male, has a girlfriend who is super weird. Not just in the way she acts, but her whole personality too. Honestly, biggest compliment in the world. Thank you. She believes in tarot cards, palmistry, crystal energy, and all that sort of crazy stuff. He started to bring her to group meetups, and she seemed like a relatively chill person. She was just chatting and smoking some pot and stuff. One time when I was at Lewis's house, though, she started to ask me what my zodiac sign is and telling me what crystals match my energy. There was another time when one of our friends was going through a breakup, and she just straight up said to him, I guess that's what happens when a Virgo dates an Aries. Okay, I'm going to highlight that because I want to talk about it because I have thoughts. It's just my personal opinion that anyone who believes in this stuff probably has a screw loose up there. But I didn't say anything because that's his girlfriend. She started to talk about this stuff more and more. I invited Lewis round to my house one day, and when he arrived, his girlfriend was there too. I wasn't rude or anything, but also wasn't super friendly to her because I didn't even invite her. Hmm. For a while, we were watching a movie until she pulled out a pack of those tarot cards. She started telling me that she wanted to give me a reading. I said no thanks. But she started pushing, saying that she just wants to see what my reading comes out as. I think the fact that this was in my house and that I hadn't even invited her made me fly off the handle. And I ended up saying loud, but not shouting at all, I have a reading for you. Stop with this stuff and get real. She asked if I was being serious, and Lewis thought I was joking. I kept a straight face and said I wasn't, and that I was fed up with all this psycho stuff. His girlfriend started crying and calling me names, and Lewis said, why are you being such a ass before leaving? I'm trying to switch words for YouTube monetization things. A few other friends that know us all have literally agreed with me, saying that she tries to push that stuff on anyone and they're fed up too. But some others say that I should have just let her do it and get it over and done with. AITA. Okay, I kind of want to read the TLDR, but we'll come back to the edits later, um, just because I think that this will give us more context. TLDR, my best friend's girlfriend believes in crazy spirituality stuff. When she tried to give me a tarot card reading, I said no, but she kept pushing. I finally told her, I have a reading for you. Stop this stuff and get real. They got upset, but some of my friends don't blame me. Okay, so again, I don't think that ultimately this really has anything to do with spirituality, her belief system at all. I do think the way that OP is writing this makes him sound like a bit of an ass just because he is very closed off and very much from the beginning he had a predisposition to judge her. He uses words like crazy and psycho, and in the TLDR he says, yeah, crazy spirituality, and is just being quite abrasive and rude about her belief system, which he does not have to agree with her belief system, right? At all. And we'll get to the ultimate tarot reading here in a second. However, I think I would love to see this guy's response to if his friend Lewis brought around a girlfriend who was really Christian. Would he have the same reaction to that? And I think that that just is really telling. Like, just because something may not be as socially acceptable doesn't mean that it makes someone psycho, crazy, these like really offensive words to describe it, honestly. All that's saying, this girlfriend forcing her belief systems on anyone is never okay. And I'm someone who almost always has a deck of cards in my bag. And if someone asks me for a reading, I get really excited. And there have been times that I've been at functions where that makes some people really uncomfortable. But when that happens, I'll say, "Okay, me and this one friend want to do a reading. We'll go into this other room." Or, "Hey, we're doing the reading here. If it makes you uncomfortable, please leave and go into another room." Like, we're in a house, we're in an apartment. We can make sure that everyone here is comfortable. But one, I'm not gonna not do a reading just because you don't like it for whatever reason, because my worldview is not any more or less important than your worldview. But at the same time, if it makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to be around it. And I'm not going to force anyone to be around it. So I do think as soon as OP said, no thanks, I don't want a reading, that should be the absolute end of it. Like, it is absolutely fine to offer that to someone. I think that's actually really generous and kind. Like, it's something that I really enjoy doing. Um, but as soon as someone says no thanks, you do not push. To me, it's also very similar to like if a friend invited you to church and they were like, no, that's all right. You don't then keep pushing and say, well, you're going to go to hell if you don't, which she doesn't say anything like that here. She just kind of kept pushing. But I do think that that's inappropriate. And I will say, I do think that this part that I highlighted is a red flag when the two friends went through a breakup and she said, I guess that's what happens when a Virgo dates an Aries. To me, that is a red flag of just deeply misunderstanding not just astrology, but a lot of spirituality. And this person may be very new in her spiritual path, in her spiritual journey, because anyone who has dipped more than just a toe into the world of astrology will know that just your sun sign is not a full picture of your astrology. But at the same time, I'll also say I will sometimes make jokes like this. And I know that people think that I'm being fully serious when I say like, "Oh, well, they're a Scorpio," that means that I deeply dislike all Scorpios, and that's not true. But sometimes it's funny, it's joking, right? The same way to me it almost feels, akin to, I don't know, making fun of someone who I was about to say blonde jokes, but I don't think that's true because you really shouldn't joke about people's physical appearances, so I can't come up with a really great counter example there, but I hope you understand what I mean, that it's like, this isn't really a deep belief system, but maybe if you have a friend that's, like, a little nerdy and you, poke fun at their nerdiness or whatever from a loving place, I think that can be true of joking about someone's star sign, right? At least based on their sun sign, without thinking that that's actually true of their entire personality, right? However, I do think people who boil all of astrology down just to the 12 sun signs, it's indicative of a belief set that I don't align with in my own belief of spirituality. Um, the other thing I'll say though, OP clearly has some sort of other problem with this girl. I don't think that she should have kept pushing, but if she like said, "Hey, would you like a reading?" and he was like, "Oh, no, thanks." And then she was like, "No, I think it'd be really fun." And then he flew off the handle immediately. Like, I think it would be interesting to be a fly on the wall here, but all that to say, she shouldn't have pushed. But let's read the edit. Okay. Edit because I forgot to mention, and someone's comment made me remember. I don't know if this is true or not, but Lewis has said to us once that his girlfriend has some kind of personality disorder, but wouldn't specify what. I don't know if that's part of the reason for her behavior. I see some people saying that I'm assuming she has a personality disorder because she likes tarot. Please read properly. I said that Lewis has literally said to us that she has one, not that I think she does. Okay, here's the other edit. Wow, I went to sleep, woke up, and checked my post, and I'm very surprised at how much attention it got. The classic Reddit edit. It seems to be mostly everyone sucks here, but because there's loads of responses, I can't really tell. I understand now I went too aggressive and should have just said no again. I guess that the fact that it was in my house and she wasn't invited, along with other things she said to me in the past, example that I gave in the start with my friends broke up, was what made me get angry a lot faster. I'm gonna apologize to Lewis. I don't know about her though, and then see where our friendship goes from there. Okay. Not sure I love that edit, but let's look in the comments. Let's see what the comments say. Okay. This has 4.8 thousand upvotes. So if you replaced her spirituality with any organized religion, then her actions are far worse, and OP looks a lot less intolerant. Like telling people what type of prayers they should say or which saint to wear an icon for, same as thinking crystals will help your health, achieve your goals, or protect you. Or when someone has a breakup saying, well, I guess it was just God's plan, or God can tell me your future, pray with me and we'll see what it is. I'm very don't push your beliefs on people person, and the girlfriend's behavior is no less obnoxious than someone who is constantly trying to get you to pray with them or convince you to go to their church. There is an attitude that this stuff is harmless, so who cares? But it really isn't harmless. People are bilked, I don't know exactly what that word means, out of a lot of money believing in this stuff. Also, some of the beliefs are pretty offensive to people of other faiths. Spiritual tolerance is great, but pushing your spiritual practices on other people suck, no matter the faith. I agree with that. And I actually think it's interesting that my first thought was if she was Christian, like, how would this change it with the organized religion? And I think on one hand, in my first reaction to that was, I bet OP wouldn't be like as rude about this and describing her as like crazy and talking about mental health disorders. So I do think there's that, but I don't disagree with this commenter either that like, yeah, when someone's pushing their faith on you, that's just bad all around. And I agree. I don't think that there's anything wrong with offhandedly making a comment um about crystals or like, if it's important to someone, if someone says like, "Oh yeah, like there's a Bible verse about this," even though I may not share their same relationship with the Bible, I still find wisdom in that Bible verse. The same way I may say, "Oh my gosh, there's actually a crystal for this if you're interested," or whatever. And then if someone's like, "No, I'm good," it's like, "Cool, peace and love, no worries." But I do think there's a way to engage with other people's spiritualities that is not pushy, but also not being offended just for someone bringing up something you disagree with. And I do think the way OP wrote this, it just seems so like he is absolutely writing her as a quote unquote crazy person, even though he says in the edit, that's not what I'm saying. That's just what her boyfriend told us. But I'm like, no, you literally called her crazy several times throughout this, which is an offensive word about mental health. So, okay, I want to read the response to this. Okay. I feel like it's a little different with Christians who proselytize. I've never had someone who's into crystals and such tell me I'm going to burn in hell for eternity because I don't think their rocks have special powers. And that's on, period. Or that I shouldn't be allowed to be a mother because I'm bi, even if my husband and I have been married for a decade. I personally think everyone sucks here. She was being obnoxious, but not necessarily an asshole when she kept bringing up her spiritual stuff. There are ways to tell her you're not interested without being insulting. Yes. I live in the South, so I do it all the time when people from various Christian groups approach me. I'm an atheist 100% and have been for most of my life, but I feel a lot of these individual folks do have their heart in the right place. I don't disagree. Their organizations, not so much. It's pretty easy for me to just tell them, hey, thanks for the offer, but I'm not interested. I'm an atheist and you'd really be wasting your time here. Have a nice day. My mom and in laws are all pretty religious. My mom's a Lutheran, though, so she's not aggressively Christian like my evangelical in laws. I just hold firm boundaries with them about religion. It's not a topic I'm going to discuss with them. They cannot change my beliefs, and I can't change theirs. Discussions about it aren't going to be productive, so I politely but firmly refuse to engage in them. I think that's so fair. But like I said, I'm in the South. Same. And I'm queer, and I'm a queer socialist and a Yankee. I'm disliked enough as it is here without being insulting or rude when I can be direct and assertive instead. I should mention that my education has involved a lot of courses about interpersonal dynamics, counseling skills, and crisis intervention. I'm also a pretty laid back person, so I'm inclined to avoid minimize conflict when it just be unproductive. Um, and cause hurt feelings. Insulting someone's personal beliefs also usually has the opposite effect and further solidifies their views. It's a defense mechanism. Yeah, I agree. I do think I'm kind of on the everyone sucks here page, but not necessarily. It does seem like OP overreacted maybe a bit with how extreme his reaction was, but I don't think that firmly laying a boundary of no, and I'm not interested in your spirituality is asshole behavior at all. I think that's more than fair. I think whether this is the girlfriend is the asshole or everyone sucks here really depends on the response. How extreme that response was. And knowing that this is someone writing this and how aggressive he's been against her views in the way he wrote it, I'm inclined to believe that maybe he was a little rude about it. Oh, just hit my mic stand. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. Do y'all have any thoughts on this? I want to scroll and maybe find another um some other comments and just see. Okay. We have not the asshole. In general, your spirituality and belief should be kept to yourself or amongst those with similar beliefs. That's an interesting thought. Imagine if she was a Scientologist and kept whipping out those personality tests during group hangouts. She would obviously be the asshole. It's the same thing. If a Mormon refused to leave your doorstep after you said no, you would be in your right to curse, swear, and insult them. Her pushing you to participate in her spiritual beliefs against your will deserved the same treatment. Interesting. I don't know if you ever have the right. Does a Mormon on your doorstep pushing their beliefs on you give you the right to curse, swear, and insult them? I mean, if you feel threatened in your own home, ye there are lines that, like, you're allowed to protect yourself, but I'm like, just someone being a little pushy, I don't think gives you the right to curse, swear, and insult them, but I think again, it's so nuanced because it depends on the level of pushiness. And I the response to this comment is I don't understand people trying to minimize the girlfriend's actions by claiming it's not as bad as if a Christian was insistent on pushing their faith on you. No means no. And I agree with that. I don't think that this being spirituality or any religion really changes it. I think pushing that at all is a problem. Yes. But I think the thing that is flagging for me is like, how much is she pushing? Is she just bringing it up casually? And then this one time she pushed and that does suck and it's not cool. But then he kind of aggressively flew off the handle. I don't know. Someone else says everyone sucks here. Super weird, probably has a screw loose, wasn't super friendly to her because he didn't invite her. This psycho shit, as all quotes from OP. And this person says, so she's an asshole because she's pushy and lacks respect for boundaries. You're an asshole because of the above quotes, but mainly number three. She was invited by Lewis. Be angry and unfriendly, but it should be to Lewis, not to the person who has zero idea they weren't welcome. Point the anger where it belongs for that, which is Lewis. Okay. Marshmallow 13, completely agree. I think that this is a beautifully concise way to wrap up my thoughts on this. And I say wrap up my thoughts as I have another thought. Um, he also says that he's gonna apologize to Lewis, but not the girlfriend. And I'm like, you blew up with the girlfriend, not her boyfriend, but you're only going to apologize to the boyfriend that is your friend and see where your friendship goes from there. Not to get too dramatic, but I fear your misogyny may be showing a little bit. If you're rude to someone's girlfriend and you apologize to their boyfriend and not them, I get that you're friends with Lewis and not with the girlfriend, that this is just a girlfriend and not your friend, but apologize to the person you were rude to. Okay? Okay. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if y'all have any thoughts on this one, but we're going to flip on over to our next, which comes from r/best of Redditor updates. And I'm really excited about this one. For all of these stories, I've only read the title. I haven't read any of the stories, but this is from 6 months ago. So I think this is when the rapture kind of trend was going on TikTok and everyone was like selling their cars and giving money away and whatever, which just before we even get into the story, struck me as odd because I'm like, well, if you believe that everyone is going to be, oh, well, I guess you're giving it to people that you don't think will be raptured. You're giving it to people that you think are going to stay. So actually, this is an insult. If you think the rapture is coming and you give someone money because they won't need it, you're saying, yeah, I know you're not coming with me. Here's $40,000. That's crazy. Okay, but let's dig in. Would I be the asshole if I don't give back the 40K dollars my heavily Christian aunt gave to me since she won't be needing it when the rapture comes? This is a repost. Okay, trigger warning, homophobia and cheating. So I'll reiterate that here. And it was originally posted in Would I Be the Asshole Public. Let's dig in. Okay. For those of who are unaware, there's a faction of Christians out there who believe that the rapture is going to happen on Tuesday. Yes, I do remember this. My aunt is one of those people, and she's been going around telling everybody how people will float into the sky and whatnot. I'm queer and agnostic, and while I was raised loosely Christian, I haven't identified with the religion since I was in fifth grade. Most of my family on my mother's side, except for my aunt, are Christian, but not particularly devout, and certainly not as much as her, nor do they believe in the rapture. She apparently became very, very involved in the religion at some point in college. Basically, my entire life, I've been ridiculed by my aunt for being queer. Oh, I'm so sorry. Since I came out at a young age. Most of my family was very kind, accepting, and understanding, except for her. I spent every family gathering getting basically cornered, bullied, harassed, called slurs, and preached at by a grown woman for my sexuality. Okay, so if we're talking about who the asshole is, I'm like, regardless, we don't even need the aunt is an asshole. You're harassing and yelling slurs at a child? No, absolutely not. Jail, straight to jail. It got to the point that my mother had to have several sit down conversations with her to essentially tell her to quit harassing me. Nope, that is not a sit down conversation. That is a your child should not be exposed to that person anymore. Period. End of story. If a family member is harassing and throwing slurs at your child, you don't have several sit down conversations. You rip them out of that environment and you do not let this person come in contact with your child. Oh my gosh. She says it's not a parent, but I'm like, I just can't imagine. This endured for a long time, and while my parents would always tell her to knock it off, she never would. Knock it off just doesn't seem sufficient to me. I'm not here though. I'm not a parent. I get that it's hard, but that just does not seem sufficient. But one day, my mother seriously put her foot down against her. She made it clear that my family accepted me, and if she wouldn't tone it down, she would no longer be welcome in our home or around me. About time. During this conversation, my aunt allegedly called my family bad Christians for not sending me to conversion therapy. Oh my gosh. And that they would regret not making me repent once the rapture was upon us. But that was a few years ago. And ever since then, I mostly just get sideways glances from her at family events and the occasional Bible verse text from her, which I can manage. Okay. Well, I'm glad that eventually a foot was put down and this person seems to be managing it well. I am now an adult, 19, and in college, and I was recently contacted by my aunt to meet up with her for lunch. Odd. I assumed that maybe she had a change of heart and wanted to apologize for how she treated me. Very kind assumption. This was not the case. Oh my gosh, immediate foot and mouth. When we met up, she essentially went on a long winded spiel about how she pities me and feels so sorry that I never repented, and how I and the rest of my family will be left behind because we never fully gave our lives to Christ. At the end of her monologue, she pulled out a stack of cash, all in $100 bills, and handed it to me, telling me that she wanted to give away her savings to those less fortunate since she wouldn't be needing it when the rapture comes and delivers her to the Lord. I tried to talk her out of it, but she insisted and practically forced the money into my hands before abruptly walking away. I counted it when I got home and it was slightly over 40K in cash. Cash is wild. Here's where I think I might be the asshole. When the rapture inevitably doesn't happen. Oh, so this is potentially okay. When the rapture inevitably doesn't happen, I have no plans of giving the money back to her. I know she's been going through some kind of long enduring religious psychosis, but I could honestly really use this type of cash to put me through college and handle other expenses, and she gave it to me willingly. Would I be the asshole if I didn't give her the money back when the rapture doesn't happen? Edit, my parents are now aware of this because she apparently decided to try and gift my younger sister a car, her relatively new nice Ford Bronco. I told my parents about the money, and my mother, who is also Christian, told me that it would be the most ethical thing to do if I gave it back to her and that I need to be empathetic to the struggles she's clearly going through. My dad, however, thinks that if she was stupid enough to give away her life savings on a whim, the money is better off going towards my education anyways. I'm still torn. Oof. That's yeah. So first off, the aunt is just a monster, right? And I want to be clear. it seems like her parents are actually really beautiful examples of how you can be a very loving and ethical Christian. I live in the South. I went to Christian schools growing up. I went to church growing up, and there are absolutely ways to embody. I think it's really unfortunate that Christian fundamentalism has so splintered um, our understanding of what Christianity is. And I know so many people that are truly so loving that are Christian, but the amount of hate that is proliferated in the organization as a whole, especially now, is so harmful. So, so harmful, specifically for reasons like this. And it's like in the name of Christianity and Jesus, this child being harassed and bullied and just absolutely mistreated by a family member who is older than them, who's an adult who should love them and care about them, being harassed. Like, I think maybe I could well, I was about to say maybe I could excuse her, like, wanting to have a conversation with the parents about her concerns, but then ultimately leaving it to the parents because those are the parents. Like, if she was really concerned, I think that's how you would voice that from a place of love. But I'm sorry, bullying and harassment is not loving. Even if your good intentions are to support this child, you're clearly not doing that. You just despise that this child is queer. Like, what? Um, I think the money thing is interesting. It being done in a way that is clearly like you're not a devout Christian, so you're gonna need it and Imma be out of here is also just like adds insult to injury too. I don't know. I'd be pretty torn too on whether to give it back or not. I think especially with it being such a large sum, it's like that's a lot of money. And she said it's her life savings. I think I'm pretty torn, but so we have the consensus here was keep the money, pretend to be raptured, and start a new life. Honestly, that's pretty sick. That way, you don't have to interface with the aunt. You have 40K to go start your new life, enjoy, and you can stay in touch with your parents and just let everyone who gave you any harm for being queer at all or any hurt from your family, you can just wipe your hands of it because you do not need anyone telling you that you are less than perfectly whole and loving and worthy exactly as you are. Okay, but we do have an update because it's best of Redditor updates. So let's get into it. Okay, update edit update 2. So I'm thinking, okay, so we have the first edit here, second update here. Just want to clarify a few things. One, I'm a bisexual woman. A few people here thought I was a man. Oh, interesting. Okay. Two, I have no idea why she would want to give me, of all people, the money. I'm just as confused as the rest of you. From what I grasped, it seemed as though it was some final act of kindness towards somebody she takes great pity on. I don't know, LMFAO. Fair enough. As a few of you said, I should probably leave some kind of trail to prove this was freely given and I didn't steal from her, so there's no legal repercussions. Should I choose to keep it, I'm still not sold on any course of action yet, especially because it's not Wednesday yet. Fair. So I sent her an email thanking her for the gift and reiterating that I did not originally want it, but it was just oh so very gracious of her to give money to a poor sinner like me. I don't want to take advantage of the mentally ill, but the selfish part of me sees this as reparations for all the torment I endured when I was younger. I've heard a few people say to invest the money instead of immediately putting it towards college, and if I keep it, that will definitely be considered. I don't expect to update again until the rapture has passed, but I will update once that rolls around. Mini edit, doing my own research on the current rapture craze going on. They think the rapture will happen either Tuesday or Wednesday, so I'll update on Thursday. We have a comment. Give it back, but only after she apologizes and asks respectfully. Oh, I think that's a pretty good course of action to take. Like, I'll give it back to you, but you have to apologize for how you've treated me and for calling me a sinner and a bad Christian. I think that's very fair. And also, isn't forgiveness like the fundamental tenet of Christianity that should be easy for this Christian aunt? Okay, update 2, 3 days later. It's Thursday, post rapture. So, as promised, here are the updates everyone wanted, and I will make it brief. No, my aunt did not get raptured. No, I will not be keeping the money, which I know will upset some of you. No, my sister did not get to keep the car, as I know some were wondering. Essentially, as a lot of you predicted, once the rapture didn't happen, my aunt kept moving the goalpost. It went from happening on Tuesday to Wednesday, because it's still Tuesday for some parts of the world, to happening sometime this month. I decided not to keep the money, and it's not for any of the reasons I initially thought it would be. Trying to give me money and giving my sister a car were the only things that she did because she thought the rapture was coming. She quit her job as well, and I found out just this morning that she also allegedly confessed to her husband that she was having an affair with her coworker slash fellow churchgoer. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that it seems to be the most moral of us that are always having some other sinful behavior going on behind closed doors? Oh, we have another comment. Definitely the time to take the high road. Give it back. Just take pity on the sinner. There you go. I mean, honestly, way to kill her with kindness, beat her at her own words, right? Um, okay, where were we? Churchgoer. Okay, here it is. She works in admin for a mega church in our area. I think the reason she was doing all of this was to get right with God before the rapture, buy her way into heaven, and have no secrets laying on her chest. I don't know. I can't pretend to understand the logic of somebody that's a rapture believer. And since, the rapture didn't happen, her husband wants to file for divorce. Hey, fair game. I'm not particularly worried about her job, working for the church and all. I'm pretty convinced they'll take her back without a fuss because of how enshrined she was in the community. But one, I read a lot of your comments and don't want to prove her right about how wicked queer people and agnostics slash atheists are by keeping it. And two, she will definitely need it for her upcoming legal fees. I'm unsure if this is her entire life savings, but regardless, after letting my emotions cool a bit, I know I wouldn't feel right to keep it. I do think that that's probably the most moral thing to do. I will say, I don't think her thoughts really matter. If OP had individually come to the decision that like they felt moral and fine with their own values keeping it, if that makes this aunt like further believe that queer and atheist people are wicked, okay, she already does. I don't think that trying to change her belief system should factor into this decision at all. However, I don't disagree with the ultimate decision that OP's making here. I think it's fair. I think this is a pretty hard one, actually. Regardless, my mom approved of my decision. My dad was a bit disappointed, but mostly because he was excited to potentially not have to spend any more money on college. LMAO. Oh, and she has not explicitly asked for it back yet. I imagine it's because everything that's gone on has her feeling defeated or just generally in a low place. But even if she doesn't, I plan on giving it back to her when I can. Wow. That is taking some high ground. I don't know if I would be able to give it back if someone didn't ask for it back. I feel like if she asked for it back, if this was me, if I was OP, I feel like if she asked for it back, I don't know if I would be able to keep it. I don't know if I could. But if she didn't ask for it back, hey girl, that's my 40K now, I fear. Okay. Okay. Yeah, sorry, this isn't the update I know a lot of people wanted. If anyone says they want to hear about the conversation when I give her the money, I'll make that update. But if not, this will be the last time I update this post. Thank you, everyone. Okay, let's look at our comments. The irony of a Christian woman who was a child abusing cheater trying to ascend in the rapture is too good. Classic. If a rapture did happen, which I doubt, she most certainly wouldn't be one of the ones heading to heaven. I do fear that this commenter is correct. Response: literally none of the people on about the rapture would actually be raptured. A case in point is that rapture isn't biblical. It's not in the Bible. It was made up by an American in the late 1800s and didn't exist as a concept before then, and non-American Christians don't believe in it. So as they don't even know their Bible and therefore don't know Christ, none of them would qualify. I don't know the historic accuracy of that comment, but that I would believe it, but do your own research. I'm not sure if that's true. Just like many of the things people truly believe in now, the Holy Grail was first introduced as a part of the Arthurian legends. It was never mentioned in the Bible. I think it's first mentioned in the tales surrounding Galahad, which are in and of themselves pretty odd. The Ark of the Covenant, however, is mentioned in the Bible with some truly terrifying powers, including disintegrating whole city walls, plagues, killing anyone who touches it, and specifically 50,070, very specific number, people just looking at it the wrong way. It could also float around, which would be pretty cool. This has been Random Bible Facts with me. I enjoy the Random Bible Facts. I do think that I agree the Holy Grail is first introduced in Arthurian legends. This is true. But I do think with this, taking this as not knowing the Bible isn't really the whole story because the Bible is just a piece of mythological history that has evolved and iterated. And I think that's the problem with taking any of these belief systems or sacred texts as I was about to say the gospel truth. Pun not intended, but I guess also kind of intended. Um, is because they exist. You exist in the context of all that has come before you. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You think the Bible just fell out of a coconut tree? It did not. It exists in the context of all that came before us, including myths and legends and other tales and narratives that were written about before then that people that at the time of writing the Bible used as inspiration, there's that word again, and iterated on. And then also, not to mention all the books of the Bible that are added and taken away and massaged and changed for the purposes of the organization of the church and all sorts of other things. Um, ooh, I like this comment. By their deeds you will know them. Matthew 7:16. That's right. Okay. I think that does it for us on this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Um, I will say the words religious psychosis were also used here. I don't know if this is an example of that or not either. Just want to add that. I think that may be a little bit more extreme. However, I do think that being careful with mental health diagnoses from the other side of a screen or just talking about people is something that I always just want to flag because I think it's important that we be careful about that. Okay, next Reddit story. We're back to am I the asshole? And this is am I the asshole that I feel my friend is using her spirituality to be a bad friend? I, 29 female, have been best friends with someone, 30 female, since childhood. She goes through periods of time where she can't listen or give advice to other people, me in particular. Interesting, because she needs to hold space for herself and she's an empath who takes on other people's feelings and can't give advice. Oh, brother. Whenever I need to talk to a friend, I always ask if they have the space or ability to talk at a convenient time for them rather than dumping. Very thoughtful way to ask for support. This friend got mad at me for holding things in about my relationship, partly because I don't want to disrupt her emotionally, because I had a mental breakdown. Oh, sorry to hear that. And she said, I didn't know any of this was going on. You should confide in me. I was taken off guard, and that it's not dumping to ask for help. So a few weeks later, I asked if I could speak to her about something, and she said she is trying not to take on other people's energy because it can lead to diseases. Uh-oh. And that she could listen but not take it in or give advice. This just makes me feel like I can't confide. I always try to respect her boundaries, but I'm there for her and the other friends that don't dump on people without asking first. Every time she goes into a spiritual, in my opinion, kind of selfish, distant friend, I internally eye roll because I don't do this to her or anyone, and neither do other friends of mine. I think this is a really interesting one because I think this isn't even necessarily a spiritual thing. I think this is something that's just happening in a lot of self care spaces and like self love movements, which I'm a huge proponent of taking care of yourself first and needing to create space for yourself. Yes. However, community is always going to be inconvenient. Other people, other human beings, by definition, are inconvenient. Having friends, having people who rely on you, it's not going to be easy. It is going to be a little bit draining. But like we talked about earlier, I think it was during our tarot reading, when you actually are taking care of yourself and your needs, then you should be more able you should have more bandwidth to be able to support and take care of other people and to spend a little bit more energy in being able to take on some of this, um, you know, negative energy or whatever that this friend is using this language to describe. The idea that that negative energy is leading to diseases does make me a little hesitant that she's so explicit with that. I mean, I can understand an argument for taking on too much of someone else's stress and someone else's burdens can stress you out, and stress can absolutely lead to all sorts of health complications. But to just straight up say, like, taking on other people's energy leads to diseases feels like a very unnuanced way to talk about that. And I think also it's really difficult when you got upset at a friend for not confiding in you to then come back and say, "I can't hear you right now." Not that it's impossible, that that could potentially happen and it be very reasonable for it to be like, "Hey, I didn't know this really big thing was going on with you, and I really wish I could have been there for you." And then 2 weeks later, something comes up with that friend and they're like, "Hey, do you have the space to be here for me now?" Taking note of what you said to me, and then that friend is like, "I actually have a lot going on today. I do wanna be here for you. Can we, like, find some time next week? Because 'Cause I'm just going through it." But that doesn't seem to be what happened. It seems to be like she was upset that she wasn't in on the drama, and then when the friend was like, "Okay, I'm trying to take the note that you wanna be here for me as a friend," and came and talked to her, other friend was like, but that's gonna give me a disease." It's like, maybe you're the disease? That's so rude. No, I don't think this girl is a disease. I think that this is a great example of the toxicity of certain self-care and self-love movements that talk about these things with a lack of nuance, and how taking care of yourself and loving yourself is not being there for other people. Those are 2 very different things, but let's go to the comments. Okay, top comment here. She doesn't sound like a good friend. It's fine for her to be a friend that you don't confide in or lean on, true. Some of those friends are lovely people to have fun with, but if she's only willing to be a close friend on her terms and then give you shit for not opening up to her when you need it, then she's not a good friend. Agree. Response here from OP. That's true. She has been a good friend in the past, and I would never end the friendship, but these phases drive me nuts, especially because I'm there for her when she asks. It's interesting. I think OP said in the original story that these are phases too, which I think maybe just speaks to this friend going through something and trying to take care of herself and trying to do what she feels like she needs to do, but then loses that a little bit because these are phases. Am I making sense with that? And it's just not consistent. And I think this friend just needs to work on maybe like actual self love from a place of authenticity, not from a place of performativity. Um, but who knows? I don't know this friend. Um, okay, this is an interesting comment. Not the asshole, but I think you're incorrect about the real problem with your friend. It's fine for people to be able to say they can't take on any more stress at the moment, and it's also fine for other people, including you, to choose whom to confide in and who not to talk to about any given problem. Where your friend was selfish and dismissive was when you had a mental breakdown and she made it about her. Oh, you know what? Yeah, damn straight. Ah, this commenter's account is deleted, but I agree with you, deleted. She didn't focus on your needs, which were paramount at the time. She focused on her own. She blamed you for her feelings because you didn't confide in her. She has no right to expect you to. Correct. I think this friend is very self centered. You can keep loving her, but you need to accept this fact about her. And you need to hold appropriate boundaries with her. Yep, you can keep loving her, but you need to accept this fact. That's truth. Such as you will tell her stuff only if you want to and not in honor she can expect. I think you should find some better friends. Just because you've known her a long time and because you were best friends when you were kids does not mean she is still your best friend. True. She's not even a good friend to you. My oldest best friends I met in college and later after I had a kid, and some best friends I met just recently in middle age. People change and grow into who they really are, and it's completely natural for friendships to wane and even dissolve as we move in our lives. Agree. And one thing that I want to highlight here is that this commenter says she sounds very self centered. Where does she say this? Yeah, I think this friend is very self centered. And I think this isolates? That's not the right word, but examples exactly what I was talking about earlier with needing to be self-centered, so then you're not self-centered to other people, right? Because this friend is clearly struggling with self-love, is clearly struggling with taking care of herself, is clearly struggling with her own relationship to herself. And if that friend actually did center her real needs first, then she wouldn't be self centered when it came time to be there for her friend who clearly needed her during a time of struggle. But because this friend is struggling with those things so much, now she's looking for that love that she should be getting from herself from this friend in her life who needs that support too. I do want to read OP's reply here though. I didn't even think about what you pointed out in your second paragraph about her being mad because she was taken off guard because I didn't confide in her enough. She even told me it's okay to ask for help when I need it. I agree it's okay for people to need space or that they can't take on something. It's just the phases where she gets like this feels really selfish and I feel insecure asking for help if I rarely need it despite being there for her when she needs it. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a really, really great point. And also, you just should never feel insecure asking for help. Like, even if a friend says, I really don't have the bandwidth for that right now, I think the way in saying that should be so like, thank you for coming to me. It's such an honor to like be here and bear witness and to support you in all phases. I really need to be careful because of where I am right now, but, like, can we set up a time in a week or in 2 weeks to follow up? And it should be done with a lot of care of, like, appreciation of still coming to you, not this brushed off of like, can't. Your energy is gonna give me a disease." Like, that just seems wild to me, and I think opening up and asking for help is just such a vulnerable thing, and it should always even if you can't meet that person where they're at, it should still be prized as the honor that it is, that someone feels safe enough to do that with you. And if OP doesn't feel safe enough to do that with her friend, I think that's another signifier that this friend doesn't make you feel secure in your relationship and your attachments to one another. And that's probably not a good friendship match. Okay, let me know if y'all have any other thoughts on that. I do think this is just different than spirituality. I think that the whole energy thing, even though like spiritual new age thought spaces and like self-love, self-care spaces are very intertwined with one another. So I understand how OP is writing about this as a spiritual phase, but again, I think this could be stemming from anything. And one thing that I think reading all these Reddit stories about spirituality is really showing me is how much it doesn't really matter if someone's spiritual or not. It doesn't really matter what someone's belief system is or not. Assholes are going to be assholes, and good people are going to be good people. And if they use spirituality to be an asshole, then that's not real spirituality. Okay, this will be our last Reddit story. It's kind of a longer one, but my mom recommended this one to me actually from I believe it's Charlotte Dobre. Read this the other day, and my mom is a fan of Charlotte Dobre. In the replay, I'll make sure to tag the original video in the comments so that y'all can go support her. But apparently, she featured this Reddit story on her channel, and my mom said that it was kind of related to spirituality, and it would be fun for me to do today. So here we go. Am I the asshole for telling my wife her parents are not allowed to ever watch our son again? My wife and I have a 2-year-old son and have been married for 4 years. Our anniversary was a month ago, and we found a nice secluded cabin on Airbnb and rented it out for a long weekend getaway. That sounds lovely. My wife asked her parents if they would be willing to watch our son, and they agreed as long as we dropped him off at their house. That worked for us since it was not our way anyway. I was raised Lutheran and my wife was raised Catholic, but neither of us currently go to church and have not had our son baptized. My mother in law knows this and hates it. She thinks our son needs to be baptized or he will burn in hell. She's that kind of Catholic. Quick aside, if this sweet baby boy, who is 2 years old, were to die, tomorrow. You think he would burn in hell because he hasn't been baptized. And that's a God you wanna worship and believe in? Weird, but okay, back to the Reddit story. So we go on our trip, and when we pick up our son and ask how the weekend went, mother-in-law says everything went fine and that she has saved my son's soul from the devil. Oh lord, and I don't think mother-in-law is saying by giving son back to mom and dad. I asked her what she meant, and she says she had our son baptized that morning at her church. Oh my God. I tried my best to keep my cool so I didn't scream at mother in law in front of my son, but I pretty much grabbed my son and left. The Herculean effort of not yelling in that moment. On the car ride home, I was fuming and told my wife as calmly as I could that this would be the last time her parents have our son unsupervised. Fair. She tried to downplay what her mom had done, but I told her we need to wait until we get home to talk about it because I'm not fighting in front of my kid. Oh my gosh. This dad seems to have like the emotional resilience of it just seems very well adjusted to be like, let's wait. I'm really mad about this, but I'm not going to yell in front of my kid. We're not going to fight in front of the kid. Amazing. When we got home and had a chance to talk about it, things got heated. I told my wife I no longer trust her parents with our son and that if they did something like this behind our backs, I can't trust them to respect our wishes as parents in the future. True, you can't. They have proven that. I said this was a huge breach of trust and I will forever look at her mom differently. She continued to try to defend her mom, saying that she was only doing what she thought was best for her grandson. She even downplayed it by saying that it's just a little water and a few words, and we don't go to church anyway, so what does it matter? That, I fear, is so, so missing the point because this isn't just a decision about your spiritual beliefs, right? This is a decision about your son's safety and whose care you trust him in. And I think the husband is 100 or OP is 100% right in saying that you cannot trust the parents anymore because there was something that is like religion and spiritual beliefs and how you raise your children is I would imagine, again, as someone who doesn't have children, one of the most important decisions that you have to make as a couple, as a team in tandem about your children. And then when it comes to childcare and who you trust your child to, there has to be such a relationship of these are our rules as a parent. And of course, grandma and grandpa have slightly different rules at grandma and grandpa's house, right? Like, I understand that. Religion is not one of the rules that we get to be loosey goosey on. And even though I don't disagree that like baptism isn't going to hurt this child, well, I guess some of the baptisms you see online where they like fully thrash dunk these babies in water, maybe it could be harmful, but let's say for the sake of the story, child was completely safe the whole time. I don't disagree that it's not harmful directly to the baby, but that is just so missing the point and is completely downplaying the betrayal that mother-in-law slash mom did here. Like, it's just so selfish. Um, I told her back to the story now, apologies. That just the fact that it doesn't even matter is just wild to me. I told her that under no circumstances will I allow her parents to watch our son by themselves again. I said that we can still let them see their grandson, but only if we're present. I think that is more than fair. I also said that if she doesn't see what the big deal is with the situation, that maybe we aren't on the same page as parents and maybe we need to see a counselor. I think that's also fair. She started crying and said that this isn't the kind of decision I get to make on my own and that I'm an asshole for trying to tell her what kind of relationship her parents can have with our son. Um, I'm sorry. You do get to tell everyone what kind of relationship they can have with your child. The yeah, and I think husband saying that we're not on the same page about that and should go to counseling is very clearly true by what the wife just said. And she's upset about that as though counseling isn't a very wise way to deal with this. I'm starting to believe that this story may not be true just with how emotionally um, mature this husband seems. I'm like, I am just in shock and awe a little bit at how he is handling all of this because I would just be flabbergasted. I told her that I no longer have any trust or respect for her parents and that I don't know if there's anything they can do to repair that. I think that's fair. I told her I don't care if that makes me an asshole, but what her parents did was unforgivable in my eyes, and they put themselves in this position to lose privileges with our son. Yes, she's been trying to convince me to change my mind for the last month, but I'm not budging. To me, this is a hill I'm willing to die on. And I think you, OP, get to decide what hills you are willing to die on. And I think at the bare minimum, going to counseling should be the next option here, and the fact that it doesn't seem like she's, um, willing to have that discussion, that he said maybe we should see a counselor, and I think that it's like, if we are reaching an impasse, let's bring in an unbiased third party to try and work this out, and her reaction is to then call you an asshole. I get that this is a really high intensity emotional situation, but, like, that's not the way that you handle a situation when someone's like, "Okay, clearly we've reached an impasse. Here's a solution to try and solve this impasse." "Well, you're an asshole." "Okay, well, I'm trying to solve this so we don't get here. Can you at least work with me so we're not continuing to hash this out in this manner?" I think we have another comment, so I wanna read it. Yes, complete disrespect for the parents' choices for their children. Grandma can't be trusted. Totally, totally agree. I would not want my kid alone with them. And I think the fact that OP is even saying, I'm not saying they can't see their grandson ever again. I'm just saying I don't want him alone with them. I think that in and of itself is like more than a fair compromise. But let's go to some comments. Not the asshole. These types of baptisms violate church law. And if it was actually done by their priest, you should contact the bishop and file a complaint. I mean, that makes sense. I'm sure churches don't want people who don't believe. I mean, honestly, it makes me think of like how, in order to get married in a certain church, you have to have a relationship with the church, and different churches have rules about that. Probably the same thing. Like, we don't necessarily want to baptize a child whose direct guardians don't have any sort of vote in this right now, and aren't going to continue to raise this child in accordance with our belief systems as a church. Not only is that a vast disrespect for the parenting, but that's grandma's disrespect for this church, I feel like, too. Weird. Okay, OP responded, "I did not know this. Thank you for that. I'll be doing it ASAP." Good. Okay. Canon lawyer. Wow. Okay, so this first thread is just all about the law. Um, and I think that's really interesting that I just hadn't even thought about that. I do think I want to read this comment just based on the glance. OP, first off, not the asshole. Second, people are giving multiple suggestions for how to help you out against the in laws and just recommending counseling. My suggestion would be to ask her how she would feel if your parents did X when she didn't want it while they were watching your son. Also, go to counseling, but see what she says to that. I mean, yeah, just a thought experiment to put the shoe on the other foot. I don't think that's a bad idea, but I do think that counseling should be a very basic, easy solution here. Okay, another comment. Not the asshole. That was a huge breach of trust. Nothing religious should be done unilaterally, either by the parents or, in this case, grandparents. Agree. I do agree that counseling would be a good avenue for you both to get on the same page. Also, apparently, you're an asshole for telling her that her parents can no longer see your son unsupervised, but they aren't assholes for unauthorized baptism. What? Yeah, agree with that. Okay, response here. I'm guessing OP's wife has the opinion of, oh, it doesn't mean anything since we aren't religious and it makes my mom feel better. So what's the harm? And it does seem like that is the wife's thinking there. But to me, the harm is the breach of trust and the fact that you cannot trust this grandma anymore, these grandparents anymore. And because it's not just grandma, it's the fact that it was with grandma and grandpa. Clearly, grandpa, it bare minimum went along with this. Like, you, what if this comes to like, it could, not only is religion and spiritual decisions already so important and so serious, but also it could get to a point of something, like, deathly serious. What if it was like a you told the grandparents, like, "Oh, we're doing this, like, allergy testing, and he's not supposed to have peanuts," and then they breach that trust and give him peanuts, and he has a really severe allergic reaction. Like, there are so many things and reasons why you would give instructions to someone for how to take care of your child that then, like, could lead to really severe consequences. And obviously, I think that that's different and that a grandparent wouldn't try and, like, physically harm. And I do think that grandma, even though this was unethical and wild behavior to baptize the grandson, I do think that she was trying to do so from a place of what she believed to be right. But just the lack of, you cannot trust these grandparents anymore to do what you have asked them to do with your kid. And that's the bottom line. That is the absolute, like, there's no coming back from that. Um, okay, interesting. Other comment. Catholic with a controlling mother here. Wife most likely is used to picking her battles and doesn't see why this is a big deal as the child was in no danger. I'm going to second the suggestion for counseling to help her see that her parents are only the grandparents. That type of decision is supposed to belong to parents only, and her mother is trying to make it for them. She needs to understand that that's not normal and not okay, and that she needs to set firm boundaries with her parents in order to have any peace moving forward. Counseling will feel like a punishment to her, and she's failing in her marriage. Oh, yeah. OP needs to help her see it as a tool to help them move forward constructively. I agree with that. That probably is part of this difficulty. Um, I think also the underlying issue here with the fact that, just this commenter saying Catholic with a controlling mother here, it makes me wonder how what other elements of the relationship between wife and mother-in-law are at play here, because this doesn't seem like something, like, this is the first time there's ever been a situation that this would happen in. I wonder what that mother-daughter dynamic is like, and even if this is the only time that something like this has happened, which one, enough for it to be the only time for something like this to have happened to need to go to counseling, but I feel like there's probably an underlying issue with that relationship too, that would be interesting, probably just for the wife to break down in therapy as well. Okay, well, we've been live for our hour and a half, so we are gonna go ahead and close it out. Um, Thank you, everyone who stopped in, stopped by. Oh, we got one more comment I will read real quick. Not the asshole, secular counseling, of course. Yes, secular counseling. But yes, thank you, everyone who stopped in, stopped by, to everyone who commented, to everyone who shared your thoughts and spent this time with me this evening. I'll be back here live next Monday, 5:30 to 7-ish. Hopefully, I won't have technical hopefully I won't have technical difficulties next time. And let me know, did you enjoy having the Reddit stories on screen so you could read them? Next week we will be focusing on the other, so this will be more about community and relationships. So if there's any Reddit stories that you would like to know my take on in relationship to this idea of community and the other, let me know. And let me know, did the tarot reading resonate with you? Did anything today make you think about something differently? And as always, I hope you feel like you are living more coherently. And until next time, love.